Our enemies began celebrating victory, right up until we called a human. The Zolthan fleet hung in the darkness of space like predators circling wounded prey. Commander Vex Thor watched the damaged colony ship drift helplessly before him, its engines dead, its shields flickering like a dying heartbeat. The ship belonged to the Meridian Alliance, a peaceful confederation of 7 species who had refused to surrender their resource-rich systems to the Zolthan Empire. "Send the victory message to the High Command," Vex Thor commanded, his 3 eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "The Meridian Alliance has fallen. Their last evacuation ship is ours." Around the bridge, his crew erupted in celebration. They had fought this war for 3 cycles, and finally the stubborn alliance had been broken. The colony ship held the last survivors, including the Alliance Council itself. Once they were captured, the remaining systems would surrender within days. Vex Thor allowed himself a rare smile. The Zolthans were known throughout the galaxy as unstoppable conquerors. They had claimed 40 systems in the last decade alone. Their military doctrine was simple and effective: overwhelming force, superior technology, and absolutely no mercy. Every species they encountered learned the same lesson: resistance was futile. On the view screen, the colony ship rotated slowly, completely defenseless. Vex Thor could see the scorch marks from their recent battle, the shattered hull plates, the venting atmosphere. It had been almost too easy. "Commander," his tactical officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the colony ship." "Put it through," Vex Thor said, eager to hear their surrender. The image flickered to life. It was Ambassador Thren, the Meridian Alliance leader. The elderly Korthi looked exhausted, his blue skin pale with stress, but something in his eyes made Vex Thor pause. It wasn't fear. It was something else entirely. "Commander Vex Thor," Thren said quietly, "I am authorized to negotiate our surrender under one condition." Vex Thor laughed, the sound harsh and grating. "You have no position to negotiate, Ambassador. Your weapons are destroyed. Your engines are dead. You have lost." "Perhaps," Thren agreed. "But before we discuss terms, I must inform you that we have activated our distress beacon. We have called for help." This made Vex Thor laugh even harder. "Help? From whom? Your alliance is scattered. Your fleets are destroyed. There is no one coming to save you. Ambassador, you are alone." Thren's expression didn't change. "We didn't call the alliance, Commander. We called a human." The word hung in the air like a curse. Around the bridge, the celebration died instantly. Officers exchanged nervous glances. One of the junior crew members made a protective gesture with his claws. Vex Thor felt a cold sensation in his stomach, but he forced himself to remain calm. "A human? You expect me to fear a single human?" "I don't expect anything, Commander," Thren said softly. "I'm simply informing you of the situation. The human will arrive in approximately 20 minutes. What happens next is entirely up to you." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. "Commander," his tactical officer said hesitantly, "should we be concerned? They are only one species." "What can a single human do against our entire fleet?" Vex Thor wanted to dismiss it immediately. He wanted to scoff at the very idea. But something stopped him. The Zolthans had conquered dozens of species, but they had carefully avoided human space. It wasn't official policy exactly, more like an unspoken understanding passed down from the High Command. When scouts reported human presence, the fleet quietly changed course. "Pull up all files on humans," Vex Thor ordered. His intelligence officer worked quickly. "Commander, our information is limited. Humans are from a planet called Earth, located in Sector 7. They are a relatively young spacefaring species. They have a small number of colonies, perhaps 30 systems." They are members of the Galactic Council, but rarely involve themselves in major conflicts. That doesn't sound threatening, Vex Thor said, though his instincts were screaming warnings. There's more, sir, the officer continued, his voice uncertain. There are rumors, stories from species who have encountered them. Most are unverified. The reports are inconsistent. Show me. The screen filled with fragments of reports, intercepted communications, and scattered intelligence. One report from a Drexen merchant spoke of a human freighter crew fighting off a pirate fleet 3 times their size. Another described a human diplomat who negotiated peace between 2 warring species in under an hour. A third mentioned a human explorer who survived alone on a death world for 2 years. But it was the last report that made Vex Thor's blood run cold. It was a partial transmission from a Cax raiding party that had attacked a human research station. The message was broken and filled with static, but the final words were clear. They don't stop. We shot one 17 times and it kept coming. Oh gods, they don't stop. The transmission ended there. The Cax raiding party was never heard from again. These must be exaggerations, Vex Thor said, but doubt crept into his voice. Propaganda, perhaps. Commander, his sensor officer suddenly called out. Jump signature detected. Something is coming out of hyperspace. Battle stations, Vex Thor ordered immediately. All weapons charged. Target the moment it appears. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Zolthan fleet was massive, 12 warships, each bristling with weapons, each capable of destroying a planet. Whatever was coming would face overwhelming firepower. The jump point opened, a tear in space that glowed with blue energy. Something emerged. It was a ship, but unlike anything Vex Thor had ever seen. It was small, perhaps the size of a fighter craft, but its design was strange. Curved lines instead of the angular military ships Vex Thor was familiar with. No obvious weapons ports, no heavy armor plating. It looked more like a civilian vessel than a warship. That's it? Vex Thor said incredulously. One small ship? This is what we were supposed to fear? The ship moved with casual grace, positioning itself between the Zolthan fleet and the damaged colony ship. Then a communication channel opened. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Wanderer, a voice said. The translator worked perfectly, rendering the words in Zolthan. The voice was calm, almost conversational. I'm here to escort the Meridian Alliance colony ship to safety. I'm asking you politely to stand down and withdraw your forces. Vex Thor stared at the screen in disbelief. Asking politely? You are 1 ship against 12. Your vessel appears to be unarmed. This is insanity. I really hope you'll reconsider, the human continued in that same calm tone. But I understand you probably won't. Most species don't. The first time. The first time? Vex Thor growled. There won't be a second time. You will be destroyed. Okay, the human said with what sounded like a sigh. I tried. Before we start, though, I want you to know something. What happens next isn't personal. This is just what humans do when someone threatens people under our protection. We're not angry. We're not cruel. We're just very, very good at this. Fire all weapons, Vex Thor roared. The Zolthan fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams that could cut through starship hulls like paper. Missiles that could level cities. Railguns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. All of it concentrated on one small ship. The human ship moved. It wasn't like watching a normal vessel evade fire. Those followed predictable patterns, relied on thrust and momentum. This was different. The human ship seemed to dance through space, moving in ways that shouldn't be possible. It rolled, dove, accelerated, and changed direction with impossible precision. Not a single shot connected. How is this possible? Vex Thor demanded. Before anyone could answer, the human ship fired back. There was no visible weapon discharge, no energy beam or missile launch. just a brief distortion in space. And then the nearest Zolthan warship simply exploded, torn apart from the inside. Panic spread through the fleet. 3 more ships fired everything they had. The human vessel weaved through the barrage like it was choreographed. Another distortion. Another warship destroyed. "Shields to maximum," Vexthor screamed. "All ships converge." But it didn't matter. The human ship moved through their formation like a shark through fish. Every few seconds, another distortion, another explosion. The Zolthans couldn't hit it, couldn't predict it, couldn't even understand what weapons it was using. In less than 5 minutes, 8 of the 12 warships were destroyed. The remaining 4, including Vexthor's flagship, were damaged and retreating. The human ship stopped pursuing. It simply positioned itself back between the Zolthans and the colony ship, as if nothing had happened. "I'm going to give you one more chance," Captain Chen's voice came through again, still calm, still conversational. "You can leave now. No one else has to die today." Vexthor stared at the carnage on his screens. His fleet, the pride of the Zoltan Empire, reduced to wreckage by a single human in a small ship. He thought of all the reports he'd dismissed as exaggeration. He thought of the CAC's raiding party's last words. "Retreat," he whispered, then louder, "All ships, retreat immediately." As the Zoltan ships limped away into hyperspace, Ambassador Thren's voice came over the communication channel again, this time directed at the human ship. "Captain Chen, thank you. We didn't think you'd arrive in time." "No problem, Ambassador," the human replied cheerfully. "That's what neighbors are for. I'll escort you back to Meridian space. Try to keep up, okay?" Vexthor didn't hear the rest of the conversation. He was too busy writing his report to the High Command, trying to explain how they had lost 8 warships to a single human, trying to explain why the standing order to avoid human space should never ever be questioned again. Behind him, his crew worked in silence, haunted by the same realization. They had celebrated victory too soon. They had forgotten the most important rule in the galaxy: never underestimate the humans. Because when you're in trouble, when all hope is lost, when the enemy is celebrating their victory, that's when you call a human. And that's when everything changes.